You know, I've had dry skin my entire life. When I was in the sixth grade, my hands looked like an old man. Now that I'm an old man, my hands look like an even older man's hands. In high school, my buddy Hal and I went to a fair and near Atlanta in Georgia. And there was a sign up said, pay 25 cents so we could see an alligator woman. So, what's this? So we paid her 25 cents. These days I know better, but back then I didn't. We went in there and this lady, she partially pulls up her blouse and exposed some of her abdomen. And basically all it was dry skin. So we left there, and then Hal looks at me and he says, you know, I just wasted 25 cents when I can look at you for free. That's how bad my skin's always been. So I've always used a lot of lotion. And one of the frustrating things is, no matter which kind you're using, when they start running empty, you can't get anything out. So I'd bang on them, try to work some down near the bottom of that pump tube, get frustrated. Finally, I'd prop them up overnight, set them like that, and let it run down around the tube, pull it out. Whatever was on there, I'd rake off on me, put it back in for the next night, and just didn't want to waste any of it. And I had this idea, kind of similar to some of these shampoo bottles and ketchup bottles that you can store upside down to let it run down. So I made a mold, just arbitrarily came up with this design, drilled a hole in it, put a plastic, basically a certain type of plastic bottle cap in there, drilled another hole in it, put a plastic tube in here, had the right size cap where this would fit this this lotion bottle. And then let it run, just sit around like that, and then what little bit's in there would run down. You could tap a little, just sit there like that, no problem. And this particular design is not that great, but it did work, and it was an easy way to get the last little bit out of a lotion bottle. I never really pursued it much other than for my own use. And then when my son gave me this 3D printer, the Monoprice Maker Select Plus, and during the last video we showed how we put it together, I thought this really gives me an ideal opportunity to try and make something like this with a 3D printer. Of course, what was going to be challenging is how to make the threads. Well, we were able to do it, and I'm going to show you how here in just a minute. Thank you. As I said in our last video where we showed you how to assemble the Monoprice Maker Select Plus 3D printer, the next thing I'd like to do is just show you how you can use it to make something novel like the lotion scavenger I showed you, and also make a useful replacement part for a broken tool. First thing you'll need to do is go to, well, just Google Ultimaker Cura software and you'll come up with this website for Ultimaker Cura. I just arbitrarily picked the Cura 3.2.1. There's later versions available. I picked this one for Mac OS because that's what I have. They also have Windows versions. It seems to work pretty good. Install that on your desktop. You'll need to add a new printer, then add a new custom FDM printer and name it. You'll change the settings as in the next slide. And once you've done that, you'll open up your Cura software on your desktop. These are the settings which I couldn't find in the Monoprice manual. I Googled it and looked around a little bit, and somebody else had these settings on the internet. This is actually my slide, but this is the information from them, and it works. So you can use these settings. Next thing you'll need to do is find a 3D CAD tool. I used Autodesk Tinkercad. This is its website. It runs off a server. You don't even really have to download it. You just get a link to it, and it works good for something that's free. I've been very well pleased with what you can do with it. I don't pretend to be an expert with it, so I'm not going to try to explain to you how to use Tinkercad in this video. You can go to other tutorials for that. But it is great and it's free to use. I experimented and tried multiple designs for getting it right. And I'm just going to show you a couple of slides really of what the final object looked like and just how I was able to refine the design and 3D print it. And also a broken drill press part that our friend Austin had or needed. Okay, you need to, once you created your Tinkercad design, you'll need to export it to the printer. What you do is you click on the export button. I believe it's in the upper right corner, select download, and then you could have multiple objects on the work plane, or if it's just one, do the selected shape or the whole thing, and then select .stl file. You can then open up your Cura software and drag the .stl file from above directly onto the Cura work plane. If you don't already have an SD card reader on your computer, you'll need to get one, and you can click on your 3D object, save it to the removable SD card. You'll see it slicing as it prepares the file for 3D printing, since basically everything is printed in a series or a stack of horizontal slices. You can now eject that card and insert it into your 3D printer, so you don't have to have your printer right where your computer is. This is the finished lotion scavenger design in Tinkercad. I actually have filed for a trademark application on this. And this shows the finished design. The tricky part here was the threads. The shape of this cone, this tubular shape, the size, all that's arbitrary. If you're going to try something like this, you can obviously select, you could use a square, you could use just about anything. And one very useful thing in Tinkercad is you can turn objects on the work plane into basically a hole where they're transparent. You can see through them. I found this to be extremely useful. You can make all these various components in different parts, put them together, and then click group, and Tinkercad will make them into one object. I really wanted to do this so that you could print this device in one print job and have a finished object and not have to print several different objects and glue them together later. So the tricky part here was getting this angle of this spout right. See, basically the lotion comes in through these, where these threads are. You have your bottle upside down on it. It goes down through this conical shape into this tube here, and up through this hollow tube here, and out a hole opening that I created here, just a round end cap on this. If you get this angle too low, since we're printing in horizontal slices, it makes a real uneven edge on the bottom. And of course the accuracy or resolution of this thing can make a difference. I experimented and come up with something that what I thought was good. If you want to make it print fast so it's rough, or you can make it print slow and have a very, very fine print job. But this whole feature really, I couldn't have done this without it. It really was very, very useful. Also, Tinkercad has two ways of making threads that I'm aware of. One of them is called isometric threads. I couldn't make them work for this. They wouldn't fit the bottle. They had this screw thread tool where you can select the radius, inner radius, outer radius, inner thread height, outer thread height, number of turns, sides per turn, total height, and whether it's left-handed or right-handed threads. I mean, it's great. I did have to experiment a lot and make some parts that didn't work before I finally got it right, but this will help you do it. Also, I tried printing these objects 4 at a time, which basically, since one object and the resolution I had was printing at about a little over 3 hours per print job, when I put 4 of them on the work plane, it took 13 hours. It got almost finished. I mean, it was just 20 minutes away from finishing when one of these came loose from the work plane and the whole thing screwed up. So at this point, I wouldn't recommend doing that until you're a lot more experienced. And it really wasn't going to save me any time, other than the fact that it could print overnight and make 4 of them. But I did try that. This is Austin's drill press chuck key holder. He had a broken one on his drill press, so he asked if we could print one. I said, well, yeah, here, try this Tinkercad and see if you can design it. So this is his design. First time he did it, it worked great. We tried printing it flat on its back, where when you flip it over, you have these little overhangs here could be an issue. So I printed it both ways. Actually, both ways worked without any problem. This is basically the finished objects. This is what I started with, what I'd done years ago, just making a hobby cast of this thing, and this 3D print thing, which is obviously it's a lot more fun to 3D print something. And So that's it. And what I'm going to do is just show you some of the iterations I went through, some of the objects, and have fun making something. Again, look at 3D printing as a really useful tool to design an invention or to make a replacement part for something. To me, just downloading somebody else's Dragon Head off the internet and printing it, you can do that, but the 3D printing can really be very useful. Okay, thank you. I'm showing you all these failures for a reason. Don't try to, or don't expect to be able to make something right the first time. For the Slotion Scavenger, I had multiple designs, trying various things until I finally came up with something that works. And this basically here is the final design. I've left this original, the base print on it just to show you what it looks like. You just peel that off and you've got it. So you can see the threads inside, a hole underneath. These are the various threads that I tried. And if you look, it's a little hard to see here, but if you look closely, you see the pitch and so forth. And I changed them. I just kept changing them. I made these objects until one of these would screw on a lotion bottle. And then I knew I had it. These down here are the train wreck from trying to print 4 at once. All these little hairy things left on there. It's where the filament wasn't getting moved correctly from one object to another. So that, just showing you that's 13 hours basically wasted. So anyway, good luck with whatever project you work on. I think you'll have a lot of fun. Thank you. Came up to check on the multiple print job, and unfortunately got a giant mess. This is Austin's broken chuck key holder in the new PLA printed one, and with the drill press chuck key in it. One other final piece of advice. I found I had major problems sticking to this heated platen. In fact, I tried to pry up some of these scavengers and other things. I actually create a little depression or impression on that plane. I found out that spraying a little WD-40 on there, wiping it off, don't leave a bunch of it on there, actually with the PLA anyway, enable to stick well enough to print and yet come off easily. All right, this is how I can use my lotion scavenger. So you can tap it or just let it set. Lotion comes out. I can use it to cure my alligator skin. Hope you enjoy whatever project you come up with. Thank you.